Deuteronomy chapters 30 and 31. And it shall come to pass, when all these things shall have come upon thee, the blessing and the curse which I set before thy face, and thou shalt call them to mind among all the nations, wherein the Lord shall have scattered thee, and shalt return to the Lord thy God, and shalt hearken to his voice, according to all things which I charge thee this day, with all thy heart and with all thy soul. Then the Lord shall heal thine iniquities, and shall pity thee, and shall again gather thee out from all the nations, among which the Lord hath scattered thee. If thy dispersion be from one end of heaven to the other, thence will the Lord thy God gather thee, and thence will the Lord thy God take thee. And the Lord thy God shall bring thee in from thence into the land which thy fathers have inherited, and thou shalt inherit it. And he will do thee good, and multiply thee above thy fathers. And the Lord shall purge thy heart, and the heart of thy seed, to love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, and with all thy soul, that thou mayest live. And the Lord thy God will put these curses upon thine enemies, and upon those that hate thee, who have persecuted thee. And thou shalt return and hearken to the voice of the Lord thy God, and shalt keep his commands, all that I charge thee this day. And the Lord thy God shall bless thee in every work of thine hands, in the offspring of thy body, in the offspring of thy cattle, and in the fruits of thy land, because the Lord thy God will again rejoice over thee for good, as he rejoiced over thy fathers. If thou wilt hearken to the voice of the Lord thy God, to keep his commandments, and his ordinances, and his judgments written in the book of this law, if thou turn to the Lord thy God with all thine heart and with all thy soul. For this command which I give thee this day is not grievous, neither is it far from thee. It is not in heaven above, as if there were one, saying, Who shall go up for us into heaven, and shall take it for us, and we will hear and do it? Neither is it beyond the sea, saying, Who will go over for us to the other side of the sea, and take it for us, and make it audible to us, and we will do it? The word is very near thee, in thy mouth, and in thy heart, and in thy hands, to do it. Behold, I have set before thee this day life and death, good and evil. If thou wilt hearken to the commands of the Lord thy God, which I command thee this day, to love the Lord thy God, to walk in all his ways, and to keep his ordinances and his judgments, then ye shall live, and shall be many times in number, and the Lord thy God shall bless thee in all the land into which thou goest to inherit it. But if thy heart change, and thou wilt not hearken, and thou shalt go astray and worship other gods and serve them, I declare to you this day that ye shall utterly perish, and ye shall by no means live long upon the land into which ye go over the Jordan to inherit it. I call both heaven and earth to witness this day against you. I have set before you life and death, the blessing and the curse. Choose thou life, that thou and thy seed may live, to love the Lord thy God, to hearken to his voice, and to cleave to him. For this is thy life, and the length of thy days, that thou shouldest dwell upon the land which the Lord sware to thy fathers, Abraham, and Isaac, and Jacob, to give to them. And Moses finished speaking all these words to all the children of Israel, and said to them, I am this day 120 years old. I shall not be able any longer to come in or go out. And the Lord said to me, Thou shalt not go over this Jordan. The Lord thy God who goes before thee, he shall destroy these nations before thee, and thou shalt inherit them. And it shall be Joshua that goes before thy face, as the Lord hath spoken. And the Lord thy God shall do to them as he did to Sihon and Og, the two kings of the Amorites, who were beyond the Jordan, and to their land as he destroyed them. And the Lord has delivered them to you, and ye shall do to them as I charged you. Be courageous and strong, fear not, neither be cowardly, neither be afraid before them. For it is the Lord your God that advances with you in the midst of you. Neither will he by any means forsake thee, nor desert thee. And Moses called Joshua, and said to him before all Israel, Be courageous and strong, for thou shalt go in before this people into the land which the Lord sware to your fathers to give to them, and thou shalt give it to them for an inheritance. And the Lord that goes with thee shall not forsake thee, nor abandon thee. Fear not, neither be afraid. And Moses wrote the words of this law in a book, and gave it to the priests, the sons of Levi, who bear the ark of the covenant of the Lord, and to the elders of the sons of Israel. And Moses charged them in that day, saying, After 7 years, in the time of the year of release, in the feast of the tabernacles, when all Israel come together to appear before the Lord your God, in a place which the Lord shall choose, ye shall read this law before all Israel in their ears, having assembled the people, the men, and the women, and the children, and the stranger that is in your cities, and they may hear, and that they may learn to fear the Lord your God. And they shall hearken to do all the words of this law. And their sons who have not known shall hear, and shall learn to fear the Lord thy God all the days that they live upon the land, into which ye go over Jordan to inherit it. The Lord said to Moses, Behold, the days of thy death are at hand. Call Joshua, and stand ye by the doors of the tabernacle of testimony, and I will give him a charge. And Moses and Joshua went to the tabernacle of testimony, and stood by the doors of the tabernacle of testimony. And the Lord descended in a cloud, and stood by the doors of the tabernacle of testimony. And the pillar of the cloud stood by the doors of the tabernacle of testimony. And the Lord said to Moses, Behold, thou shalt sleep with thy fathers, and this people will arise, and go a-whoring after the strange gods of the land, into which they are entering. And they will forsake me, and break my covenant, which I have made with them. And I will be very angry with them in that day, and I will leave them, and turn my face away from them, that they shall be devoured. And many evils and afflictions shall come upon them. And they shall say in that day, Because the Lord my God is not with me, these evils have come upon me. And I will surely turn away my face from them in that day, because of all their evil doings which they have done, because they turned aside after strange gods. And now write the words of this song, and teach it to the children of Israel, and ye shall put it into their mouth, that this song may be a witness for me among the children of Israel to their face. For I will bring them into the good land which I swear to their fathers, to give to them a land flowing with milk and honey, and they shall eat and be filled and satisfy themselves. Then will they turn aside after other gods and serve them, and they will provoke me, and break my covenant. And this song shall stand up to witness against them, for they shall not forget it out of their mouth, or out of the mouth of their seed. For I know their wickedness, what they are doing here this day, before I have brought them into the good land, which I swear to their fathers. And Moses wrote this song in that day, and taught it to the children of Israel. And he charged Joshua, and said, Be courageous and strong, for thou shalt bring the sons of Israel into the land which the Lord sware to them, and he shall be with thee. And when Moses finished writing all the words of this law in a book, even to the end, then he charged the Levites who bear the ark of the covenant of the Lord, saying, Take the book of this law, and ye shall put it in the side of the ark of the covenant of the Lord your God, and it shall be there among you for a testimony. For I know thy provocation, and thy stiff neck. For yet during my life with you at this day, ye have been provoking in your conduct toward God. How shall ye not also be so after my death? Gather together to me the heads of your tribes, and your elders, and your judges, and your officers, that I may speak in their ears all these words. And I call both heaven and earth to witness against them. For I know that after my death ye will utterly transgress, and turn aside out of the way which I have commanded you. And evil shall come upon you in the latter days, because ye will do evil before the Lord, to provoke him to anger by the works of your hands. Psalm 63, 64 in Hebrew, for the end, a psalm of David. Hear my prayer, O God, when I make my petition to thee. Deliver my soul from fear of the enemy. Thou hast sheltered me from the conspiracy of them that do wickedly, from the multitude of them that work iniquity, who have sharpened their tongues as a sword. They have bent their bow maliciously, to shoot in secret at the blameless. They will shoot him suddenly, and will not fear. They have set up for themselves an evil matter. They have given counsel to hide snares. They have said, Who shall see them? They have searched out iniquity. They have wearied themselves with searching diligently. A man shall approach, and the heart is deep, and God shall be exalted. Their wounds were caused by the weapon of the foolish children, and their tongues have set him at naught. All that saw him were troubled, and every man was alarmed, and they related the works of God, and understood his deeds. The righteous shall rejoice in the Lord, and hope on him, and all the upright in heart shall be praised. Proverbs chapter 13, verses 1 through 5. A wise son is obedient to his father, but a disobedient son will be destroyed. A good man shall eat the fruits of righteousness, but the lives of transgressors shall perish before their time. He that keeps his own mouth keeps his own life, but he that is hasty with his lips shall bring terror upon himself. Every slothful man desires, but the hands of the active are diligent. A righteous man hates an unjust word, but an ungodly man is ashamed, and will have no confidence. The Holy Gospel according to St. Mark, chapter 12, verses 28 through 44. And one of the scribes came, having heard them reasoning together, and perceiving that he had answered them well, asked him, Which is the first commandment of all? And Jesus answered him, The first of all the commandments is, Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord. And thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy mind, and with all thy strength. This is the first commandment. And the second is like, namely this, Thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. There is none other commandment greater than these. And the scribe said unto him, Well, master, thou hast said the truth, for there is one God, and there is none other but he. And to love him with all the heart, and with all the understanding, and with all the soul, and with all the strength, and to love his neighbor as himself, is more than all whole burnt offerings and sacrifices. And when Jesus saw that he answered discreetly, he said unto him, Thou art not far from the kingdom of God. and no man after that durst ask him any question. And Jesus answered and said, while he taught in the temple, How say the scribes that Christ is the son of David? For David himself said by the Holy Ghost, The Lord said to my Lord, Sit thou on my right hand, till I make thine enemies thy footstool. David therefore himself calleth him Lord. And whence is he then his son? And the common people heard him gladly. And he said unto them in his doctrine, Beware of the scribes, which love to go in long clothing, and love salutations in the marketplaces, and the chief seats in the synagogues, and the uppermost rooms in feasts, which devour widows' houses, and for a pretense make long prayers. These shall receive greater damnation. And Jesus sat over against the treasury, and beheld how the people cast money into the treasury, and many that were rich cast in much. And there came a certain poor widow, and she threw in 2 mites, which make a farthing. And he called unto him his disciples, and saith unto them, Verily I say unto you, that this poor widow hath cast more in than all they which have cast into the treasury. For all they did cast in of their abundance, but she of her want did cast in all that she had, even all her living.